Hi, all considerable members of the conversation. Our journey today, about Magma Pixies, is a spark and interesting concept. As of this morning, I connected with, just aspects of the nature of these, like, beings that exist in higher dimensions, but also, partake in the education for these souls to incarnate here into the body of the Matrix and operate among our society as beings with the reflected skill to manifest like the wishes of the subconscious of the earth into a participative um a participative like the tip of my tongue talks about agreement. There's not so much action upon whether or not this is a known concept, but um we're dealing with just magma pixies and their discontent with like a lot of the um stagnant pressure that is being exhibited through stubbornness and stubbornness mainly the focus of magma pixies in general, because it's as magma pixies, I believe my soul connected with these potential beings before coming here into this aspect of the matrix and affiliated itself with the pattern of behavior that prepares you for quick thinking and temperament, the ability to be able to experience your temper in a way that is not induced into rage and channeled into forthcoming activities that prohibit you or the people around you or the class that you're in. So we arise to certain occasions where like the souls that incarnate into this existence have limited access to the development of incarnate like abilities, just because they're underdeveloped and in early stages experience the fact that they are underdeveloped in an environment that they are not conditioned and prepared for, just in the realm of our specific potential dialogue that our evolution has prepared us for. Um, I think that magma pixies allow the like people that are underdeveloped to express themselves in the dimensions of the matrix that I don't want to call the the realm of magma pixie a playpen. These are highly intuitive um sect of spiritualism that express themselves in the childlike expression of their personhood, because this reflects a pressurized environment that these spiritual entities, our mirrored selves, express themselves in. And so um Wow. Okay. Okay. So we have these cards being laid out. Um, I rely on intuitive spreads, so it's like I kind of just make the interpretation and expectation for what the cards are going to mean as I lay them out. I'm using the 5 cent tarot for the conversation. This is a divine earth aspect of tarot that has representation of like things from the animal kingdom, insect kingdom, the plant kingdom as well. And I haven't tapped into this level of tarot for a while. I opened the book and like flipped through it, got familiar with like my sense of taste that like interacts with the images, like the imagery that like the artist wanted to invoke. Pushing forward, like there is a lot of pressure to continue the stretch of time that we exist in. This commitment to over over and like the fear of like a need to tie a bow on um, the structures that exist as a social like impact of our environment. This literally like creates stress for ourselves as like independent beings that are like digitized, like we're physical matter, like digits of earthly existence. They get to wander and meander upon the earth, upon themselves, that experience their own social pressures, that come to a pivotal point where there is a climax like the eruption of time, and it's mirrored in volcanic eruption. So it's like when we have these bows that we want to tie, like to put a nice end to things, we're talking about like the end of like series, like movies, books, games, like those industries specifically. Deity work allows specifically in like, well, it's so vast, but a lot of the characteristics of the pantheons and stories that I gravitate to allow for the existence of time to remain relevant and immortal aspects of our existence. Like, we don't experience the finiteness of the end of a crucial chapter, um, that signifies like something pertaining to like a rapture where we all disappear and like we leave these bodies behind and like all that stuff. Like it doesn't like correlate to the fact that like this being is still going to continue to be here as an earthly state, um and progress onward after the fact. Like it it's like an oxymoron of philosophy and theology that exists in just the imagination. I don't think that like it's wrong to experience these aspects as therapeutic ways to experience transformation. I think that can be something that's relevant. Um, but like we're going to continue to feel the pressure to transform, and like to remain relevant just to the who wanted to have this conversation. um we have our accordance laid out of like where these beings are remaining influential to people in the, we're fifth dimensional beings, but like we have a third dimensional state of consciousness that exists on its own. So it's like the aspects of like the Magma Pixie community that like remains influential to the third dimensional aspect of our soul is representative of the unknown right now. There is no expression to the like relevant aspects of their experience. Um, like I've seen the like mirroring of this behavior in the fact that like there are entities like communicating with each other and they're being ignored or like taken out of the perspective involved. And so there's just this culminating pressure to the communication of our individual identity that continues to add stress. And like when you're not familiar with this aspect of our soul, we lose communication with the subconscious that won't surface and will continue to move um, in the dark. I mean, like, not in the dark. Like, I experienced, like, visions of, like, the Magma Pixies in, like, aspects to my experience with schizophrenia. There are, like, windows to, like, the soul of our matricy that is almost like a stage for these pixies to take place. They're very pressurized individuals. They don't have like the same vocal accordance that we do. Their access to language is limited to like post-verbal personifications of like the expression that their temperament speaks. It's kind of like a violin being what's it called? Like a violin being what is it? It's violins are very influential, have a very influential impact on our um state of mind. Their experience with pressure and how it releases and emits vibration is something that like I'm sensitive to, like in like coordinates with those entities and its specific beings. Like sometimes my mind just like operates and receives the transmission like as a sound, but it's not coming from my eardrum. It's very weird. It's like I'm in air science, so maybe that has something to allow me to experience this in this dimension. Um, but our trouble is like going back to the cards being laid out. Like we're considering the fact that like the matricy that these beings have set up stage for and play for impact are not being considered like among the general consensus that they're performing for. And it instills a lot of doubt. The Hermit in reverse like correlate to the message. Like it it um it do take nerve to associate yourself within a narrative that you don't have total intuition to pertain to the relevance of your incarnation. There are aspects of your soul that do not know whether or not you're here. They're in the darkness. They want to reach out. We consider the fact that we are heavily influenced by just structure and mode of behavior that is relevant to the satisfaction of the overall wealth of the collective that we're experiencing here. But there are aspects of our soul that are being left out of the conversation. Jordan Peele had an excellent interpretation of this when it came to um, just the subconscious and how it um, lacks communication in the movie Us. Ten of Cups, in the definitive aspect of our future that wants to progress onward, um, is finding a way to like what this is making me think about. Yeah, the Five of Cups coming in reversed. There are aspects of your soul that are experiencing these magma pixie like communities, these images of our being that kind of have a outlet to participate in and commit to the satisfaction of your experience here. Like your soul has a desire and it wants to wonder about like what the potential outcomes could be if you had just done the thing that you were wishing to do. Um, and like the Magma Pixies, like for the general consensus of the population, are considering the fact that a lot of them are wandering without you in communication, whether it's because it's a charming notion for them to not like allow you to feel left out in their experience, or the fact that this is something that you're currently preparing for, that they're practicing the modality of to prepare your ligaments to do it, as if like it's like the prodigy nature that the Magma Pixie allows our consciousness to experience. You step in and like it's go. Like you've got the message, you've got the interpretation, you can move onward like with such ease that you can surprise yourself. Um Now what's happening? Oh my god. I'm gonna move on. Our coexistence in the magma realm, like, is tripped up over the Eight of Cups. Now we have our beetle here. No, crab. Crab with teacups all over the place. Um, there are, like, relations to the fact that, like, these beings are also shapeshifters. Like, they can manifest as like beings from the technological realm or animals that exist in both the spirit and in our presented manifestation of the matrices. Like there are commitments that the soul can make to prepare oneself for the enlightenment that the specific creature has access to because of just all the factors that go into like the intuition of the animal itself and the stories and folklore that we as participants write them into existence with. So it's like sometimes our experience with a story is limited because of social stigma that is associated to like the interpretation of the similar image that it has taken shape of. So you can't like what the pixie like what the magma realm has found itself in is the dependence on these things because it's something that we hold to be precious in our own soul. But it can't commit to being able to transmit that energy to us like consciously because of the area of life that we'll put in or step into that we're unfamiliar with the outcome at play. The bedrock showing up like for the 9 of matches. Now, is this upright? Yes. The 9 of matches. Um, we have a quail or parrot with all of the matches. It talks about resilience here. Um, I think it's just the fact that, like, because this is a inevitable facet of our consciousness that is spoken by us as individuals with those who have made themselves familiar to this community, um, like has to deal with the fact that this pressure is always going to be here and it's always going to sustain the life that exists among this planet. So we're continuing like with the ideals that we hearken and embody and forego like transformation for, because there's a need for acclimation that isn't part of what we came here to experience to begin with. It's like a violation of a contract or treaty that you make. And this is a way for your soul to express itself in privacy amongst other individuals of that nature. Time will continue to erupt among these aspects of your soul. The more pressure is associated to the atmospheric pressure that is involved. If you have a tight lid on everything, it will manifest as just like tension and body. That, of course, can be worked through and found relief in and around, and that's just something that's made access to you. But your soul is still continuing to ferment itself in the desire that it wished to have. Like, sometimes, like, disappointment is just a necessary part of our soul's journey. But the over end, like, harkening back to the Aquarius Stellium video I made, like, progressing onward from here after this point, we've got to consider the fact that we're making an environment for ourselves and cultivating a place for us to experience the maximum potential of our happiness, the maximum potential of our what's the word? Leisure, like leisurely expression of like release, like whether it's basking, being brash with each other, like finding ways to speak eloquently and peacefully, and in a way of harmony. Now, we're in the age of Aquarius. It's not the age of Libra. So we have a long way to go before we get there. But these are the beginning stages. We have entered the realm of technology and this consciousness. It's not too early at all to get involved with the standard of the rest of like the matrices. To be honest, like the tower, like spirit is experiencing the tower like as consciousness continues to ignore itself and enter remission for the belief in the goals that are set by particular hierarchies that envision like an inside perspective on their achievement. It's not a very like, I mean, I hate using the references to philanthropic work, but there's not as much like, the only time we're look that like these associations are looking outside of themselves is when there is an exchange or trade, transfer of information to affirm the aspects of the organization or company itself, and um, commit to the consistency of that community. So with the tower like showing up, I'm not thinking that we're entering a phase where like we're gonna see like division and the toppling of specific organizations or businesses. I'm not calling about that. Like, I'm talking about the fact that like your soul has entered remission in its other lifetimes that are currently experiencing itself, to check in on how you're doing. Because you, the one watching this video, like as a physical being, all spirit, like spiritual entities, I mean, we're part of spirit as a manifest body, but we've come in and been born into the imagination of ignorance and association with itself. So we're like justice. Like, we're all walking around with blindfolds on, unbeknownst to the fact that your soul is continuing to create outside of your experiences, which is an exciting thing. It can't be contained, but because it knows of its immortality, depending on the fact of whether or not like this being has been imprisoned, because that exists in the spirit realm as well. Like, the tower shows the relationship that your spiritual body wants to have with your experience of bliss. So there are no corners being cut. Like, no one's cutting through anything here. Like, I think that there can be interpretations that are of interest to the narrative, but I don't associate that with cutting corners. Like, it's not a shortcut. It's an association to dogma that forgoes to commit manufactured consent. And that can happen in spirit. It happens here. Our bedrock in spirit is experiencing the Eight of Needles, as we talked about. Like, this is a soul aspect of spirit that creation has allowed the perspective to remain ignorant of whether or not it's here. And this is why like the tower can even come into play, like in the magma realm, because they want to test the water and see like, am I a material being? Like, is this really where I am? Like you can imagine like the sphere of Earth and the atmosphere that spirit is, and there's like a light body that exists, but as well as the shadow and matter itself, and like spirit can exist in the imagination outside in space, and like I'm creating this image for you to have like a participative experience with this. I'm schizophrenic. It's so easy for me. Like, you gotta bear with me. I'm sorry. Like, times are moving. Um, our spirit, like, there's so much interference that happens in the atmosphere of Earth that sometimes, like, spirit may feel called to a specific message that's happening and pertaining to a conversation here that makes it wonder to itself if it's relevant to the conversation at hand. Am I in the war? Like, is this happening? The climate is changing. Have I got anything to do to participate in this action or function? And like, there are some souls that know they're here. There are some that don't. Um, it's more likely that, well, yeah, again, like, the fact that spirit comes in so many different identifiers, that like there are people of the magma realm who can incarnate and have the ability to be participant to a conversation and be very aware of the fact that they're here. You know, it's not like there's no doubt of whether or not this is real or not. Like, it's considerate to a lot of the sanity that people desire. Not a necessary function, though. Like, we're going to go through time periods in the future where we're dealing with imagery and associating it with imagination. I mean, we've experienced this as beings who create art and language that is recorded, but your connection and resource, like, is not like, it's a product of the existence itself. Does that make sense? Like, I mean, it's weird. Like, I don't think that we are. Like, I don't think we are a product of the Earth's existence. I think the Earth literally, like, he created the change that sprung appetite from the material minerals that existed. And there was this engine that was created and evolved into the creation that we are today. So it's just an aspect of the soul of Earth that we're all a part of, that we all experience individually. Just because, like, I mean, we're still, like, beings who've just recently attained sight, you know? The ability to see. Not all entities in this earth have that ability. So the Eight of Needles just coming through, um, I just feel like there are a lot of tacts, like your spirit trying to put together a narrative to decide whether or not, like, you're part of the narrative and how it associates itself with it at all. Like, especially for new souls here, you're fermenting with people who have attained sight that don't have a bird's eye view of the life that coexists around them. So their spirit is trying to do that without them and, like, associate itself and learn the area that it's in, the arena it's a part of. Um, so, of course, as with all skill, there are some people who are just way better at this than other people. Like, it's a talent that can be developed and processed into a career aspect. This can be associated with people who have guides in the other realms that know you're a reliable source to get information from and communicate to the other souls who are wandering, going about the world blind and or tactfully in disagreement with what's going on. Very complicated. Lots of personalities that like morality allows that these people are a part of. So I think like where the conversation remains is just remembering like who these people are. Like familiarize yourself with the Magma realm and how it allowed us to come into existence, but not only express itself in the same manner. When you have a lot of like, okay, this is gonna be my end spiel, like conclusion, just correlating to um how our story fits in as a third dimension. Um that you know the fifth dimension has to work around. Like we're a big rock that can't get out of the way. Like I mean, we're moving very quickly, but it's there's so much like conversation happening around in this area. So um our like now that we have privacy, our expression that continues in non-emotional or passionate aspects, the correlation to astrology is how earth and air remain at odds and quake unrepentantly against each other. The earth being pitted against itself and noticing the movement that occurs between the two. And it's like you don't have a temper, it's the temperament that you have and hold. It's like the considered will to beget something into existence and brave it, like the experience of participation entirely. um and so it's just like going at this like yeah, forgive yourself for the positions you end up finding yourself in that weren't planned or prepared to be attained by your presence. Like, you wandered into a circumstance that you had not considered to be a possibility, and like you experience just like a sense of abandonment from your own decisions. It's like it's this weird self-abandonment mentality that like is personally prepared for us just in the fact that like we exist alone. Like it's something very familiar to us already, and when it feels like it's self-inflicted, it almost senses as a betrayal to yourself. So forgive yourself in those moments, not looking onward, but allowing the moment to preside as evidence of the fact that you exist and have free will to continue to make your own choices moving forward. and not depend on the environment around you to correlate and make the decision for you. Um, I know I just talked about the fact that you may have walked yourself into a corner and feel betrayed by yourself, and the only advice I give is to trust yourself. Like, that's what I have for you. It's not like this momentary lapse is evidence of a fact that you need to become more reliant on other people. Um, I think, especially like from the Magna realm, you'll find the voice is still accessible in the most unlikely of ways. Like, it will be known, like, and the soul will get to experience it and remember it forever. Um, all right, now I hope you guys have a fantastic time. Continue to nurture yourself, take care of all your needs, and continue onward. Bye.